So it's time to ask, did the corporate racist war criminal multimillionaire sexual predator of your choice win the election? Lee Camp wants to know. This is from Lee Camp's official website. Did your preferred corporate racist war criminal sexual predator win the election? I sure hope so. I sure hope it worked out for you. For a minute there, it looked like the bad corporate racist war criminal multimillionaire sexual predator was going to win, and we were all very nervous. But then at the last second, the good corporate racist war criminal multimillionaire sexual predator eked it out, and all was well in America. Even Fox News has admitted it, which is incredible considering Fox News is still debating whether the earth is flat and whether Asian people are a real thing or just a wives' tale. So now every Biden voter is happier than a pig in shit. Side note, are pigs actually happy in shit? Or are they just kind of okay with it? Because okay is different than happy. You know, like when I was a kid, people probably thought I was happy playing Tetris. But no one is happy playing Tetris. You just play it because you don't have another Game Boy cartridge with you. You'd much rather be ripping people's hearts out through their anuses with Mortal Kombat than putting the curvy brick in place next to the long brick. Oh man, the hours I spent waiting for the long brick. Wherefore art thou, long brick? So really, Tetris was just better than the alternative of being in reality and actually talking to other human beings. Of course, I'm talking about 30 years ago when the term Proud Boy just meant somebody who got a high score on their Game Boy. Point being, saying I hope the corporate racist war criminal multimillionaire sexual predator of your choice won the election might annoy some of you, but each of those qualifications are not really in dispute. You may argue how much they bother you, but very few people argue that any of those are not true at all. Let's go through the list of adjectives, shall we? Corporate. Are both Donald Trump and Joe Biden supportive of the corporate world? Does a duck take watery dumps? Trump gave corporations massive tax cuts, and both the Democrats and GOP gave Wall Street trillions of dollars during the pandemic. Biden's largest donors during his roughly 900-year political career have been credit card companies and banks. The dude is from Delaware, a tiny swamp of a joyless colony used by rich people around the world as a tax haven. So, are Trump and Biden corporate? Yes. Racist. Are both Trump and Biden racist? We hear every day how racist Trump is. That's clearly not up for debate. Biden is a little less outward about his racism. He just manifests it through policies rather than by calling non-white nations shithole countries. Policies like his '94 crime bill and his close friendship with segregationists. I guess it proves we do live in the land of opportunity, considering the guy who has arguably caused the imprisonment of more black and brown Americans than anyone else in the history of the country could still become president. So on racist, I'm going to give them both a rating of course. Multimillionaire. This one's not really a question either. Donald Trump may be deeply in debt, but he still counts as a billionaire. His real estate alone is worth billions. And Biden certainly has millions of dollars from book sales and whatever knickknacks he sells on the side of I-95 as people pass through Delaware. I think he made at least $250,000 on eBay just by selling Clarence Thomas's pube from the top of the Coke can that Anita Hill held up in front of Congress. So we can all agree on the multimillionaire designation. War criminal. Is anyone really going to argue with me on this one? The Obama-Biden Pentagon dropped more bombs than any administration since possibly Vietnam. Donald Trump would have beat that record if he had gotten a second term, having dropped roughly 40,000 bombs in his first year in office. Biden supported the Iraq War, supported the obliteration of Afghanistan, supported Obama's attack on Libya that has turned one of the most successful African countries into a warlord's playground with open-air slave markets. Does it matter that it's open air? That's what everyone says, open-air slave markets. But I don't find that any worse than basement slave markets or slave markets done in the bathroom at the food court of a mall in suburban St. Louis. But I guess open air means they're proud of it. So I guess being proud of your slave markets is kind of shitty. I guess that makes them Proud Boys. Point being, Both Biden and Trump have happily overseen the killing of hundreds of thousands of innocent people, including by way of economic war on a multitude of countries. So calling them war criminals is honestly the polite version. It's so much more civilized than calling them blood-stained sociopathic murderers, don't you think? So we've agreed on all the adjectives so far, and now we come to the last: sexual predator. Donald Trump's photo is next to the term sexual predator in the dictionary. I mean, the moron bragged about grabbing women's pussies without consent. And that's not even including the multiple women who accused him of rape. So yet again, sexual predator is perhaps a bit too polite. Then there's Biden. Biden has been accused of some form of rape by at least one woman. On top of that, there's several women who accuse him of grabbing them or smelling their hair. So even if you don't believe the rape allegation, you still have overwhelming evidence of some level of sexual predation. So now we've been through every adjective, every descriptive word in my opening question, and not one is false. Therefore, I'll ask you again. Did the corporate, racist, war criminal, multimillionaire sexual predator of your choice win the election? I hope so. I hope you have spent the past couple weeks giving out so many high fives you have third-degree burns on your palms. Here's another piece by Thomas Green, How the Media Make Us Afraid of Trump, giving him way more credit than he deserves. The caption under the photo of 3 heavily armed white men reads, "Stuck in traffic, perhaps." We are lucky to be alive, apparently. More than a week has passed since Election Day 2020, and despite scores of expert predictions, there have been no organized, violent attacks against American voters or poll workers by right-wing extremists. It must be a relief to news junkies because a few weeks ago the situation looked grim. Throughout October of 2020, in the run-up to Election Day, the mainstream media fired up its klaxons, warning us daily of likely bloodshed at the polls from armed militias loyal to Trump. CBS News raised the alarm on October 26th with a piece titled, "Do Armed Right-Wing Militia Groups Pose a Threat to U.S. Presidential Election?" They interviewed an expert, so you can probably guess the answer to that question. NBC News Now warned us on October 29th with a piece titled, "Militia Leaders Defend Their Views as Armed Movement Grows in the U.S." The presenter claimed that 5 swing states were at high risk of election-related militia violence. CBS did a separate piece titled "Militias in America," with Part 1 appearing on October 28th and Part 2 on the day before the election. I found such a deluge of alarming news articles published during October 2020 alone that I can only provide a search link below. Pressing the More Results button will yield an inexhaustible supply of horrifying predictions, including claims about a looming civil war, all of it supported by strenuous speculation. Dodging the proverbial bullet. NBC News grew so impatient with citizens keeping the peace and observing the law that on November 5th they cobbled together a misleading video segment about ballot count protests in Phoenix, Arizona. Tensions rise in Arizona as protesters crowd outside Phoenix ballot counting facility, they named it. The reporter tried to make it seem menacing, using language like "people screaming," even as the audio flatly contradicted him. He spoke of rising tensions and armed people and noted the arrival of a sizable convoy of trucks, but the video shows only a small group of people standing around and occasionally shouting, such as one finds at every peaceful protest. As he threaded his way through the loosely packed crowd of maybe 50 people, no one paid him the least mind. "We're trying to keep a low profile," he explained, as if tiptoeing past a pride of hungry lions. The next day, NBC doubled down, showing a smaller, quieter group at the same Phoenix polling station, waving flags and being heard. Again, the narration was divorced from anything in the audio or video. NBC claimed that things had got a little heated last night, which contradicts their earlier video. In the follow-up piece, the protesters are characterized as angry and creating a very tense situation, although the clip supports no such claim. NBC also said that poll workers had vowed to continue to count those votes despite protests, implying that the polite little group outside represented some manner of obstacle or threat, which again was not supported by anything in the video. In defiance of the mainstream media's October symphony of fear, armed thugs declined to gather at polling places to intimidate voters, and none have since tried to intimidate poll workers counting ballots. The media's militia cry appears to have been politically motivated, an effort to frighten reluctant lefties and Republican-leaning suburbanites into supporting the disappointing Democrat, Joe Biden. Now, I'll gladly allow that armed militias are real and that they may well attract dangerous people. I'll also concede that they have threatened and committed political violence. They certainly made their presence and impatience known in the Michigan and Idaho state houses last spring and summer over something they cared about: COVID-related restrictions of movement and assembly and mask requirements. But their loathing of the federal government tends to be nonpartisan. Many far right-wingers believe that our entire system of government is rotten and beyond redemption. Few care which party's lackey sits in the Oval Office. Oh, Captain, my ROFL. Donald Trump couldn't be less appealing to serious right-wingers, to people who respect order and individual responsibility and competence. Donald is an agent of chaos, a colossal, deafening vortex of ham-fisted mediocrity and cheapness and kleptocratic malpractice. He has made a pig's breakfast of the federal response to the coronavirus, resulting in tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths. He's sloppy and sweaty with a plastidip tan and troll doll hair, and his dentures come loose. His suits feature shoulder padding of comical dimensions. From his mouth gushes a torrent of self-serving fatuities largely made up on the spot while crowds cheer deliriously. Dry humping an American flag is not outside his repertoire if he thinks it might draw applause. The only people who respect him are those who mistake him for the fictional billionaire he played on The Apprentice. The rest of us knows he's a punk, like the Great Oz, a timid schlemiel playing with horn compressors that belch steam and flames and noise. He has no brown shirts or orange shirts awaiting his orders. He has no plan and no capacity to stick to one if he had. Yet we've been conditioned to think of him as some diabolical cult leader, a David Koresh or a Jim Jones. The liberal media have exaggerated his malevolence and competence every day for 5 years now. I can't believe I'm about to write these words. The mainstream media portrayal of Donald is largely fraudulent and conveniently useful to the Democratic Party. I understand now why he whines about fake news so often. The idea that he's uniquely evil is preposterous. He's uniquely ignorant, emotionally needy, callous, irresponsible, and confused, but no one is drinking the Kool-Aid he's been passing around. No one is willing to risk even a minor hassle with the law on his behalf. He's just not worth it. He'll soon find himself stumbling out of the Oval Office exactly as he stumbled into it, without a clue about what just happened. Won't get fooled again. The Who. Possibly The Who's most famous popular song, Won't Get Fooled Again, was originally published as the final track on their 1971 release, Who's Next? We'll be fighting in the streets with our children at our feet, and the morals that they worship will be gone. And the men who spurred us on sit in judgment of all wrong they decide, and the shotgun sings the song. I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution, take a bow for the new revolution, smile and grin at the change all around, pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday, then I'll get on my knees and pray we don't get fooled again. Change, it had to come. We knew it all along. We were liberated from the fold, that's all, and the world looks just the same, and history ain't changed, 'cause the banners they all flown in the last war. I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution, take a vow for the new revolution, smile and grin at the change all around, pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday, then I'll get on my knees and pray we don't get fooled again. No, no. I'll move myself and my family aside if we happen to be left half alive. I'll get all my papers and smile at the sky, for I know that the hypnotized never lie. Do ya? Yeah, there's nothing in the street looks any different to me, and the slogans are replaced by the by, and the parting on the left is now the parting on the right, and the beards have all grown longer overnight. I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution, take a bow for the new revolution, smile and grin at the change all around. Pick up my guitar and play, just like yesterday, then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again. No, no. Primal scream. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.